answered in kind. There are epochs that announce themselves with ruin, with trumpet, with flame, epochs that demand attention by catastrophe. And then there are epochs that arrive obliquely, witut spectacle, felt not as rupture, but as recalibration. The latter are more dangerous to the unprepared mind, for they do not shout, they rearrange the grammar of reality while no one is looking. We are inside such a rearrangement now. The alteration is not merely social, nor merely political, nor merely moral. It is ontological. It concerns what kinds of distinctions can still bear weight, what definitions still function as instruments rather than shackles, and what forms of authority can survive contact with complexity. The air itself feels thickened, not with smoke, but with unmetabolized affect. A surplus of fear and grievance suspended like particulate matter, refracting every beam of attention that passes through it. Many feel this pressure somatically. They mistake it for attack. They interpret disorientation as invasion. They respond reflexively, tightening borders around concepts that were never meant to be fortresses. Others feel it hardly at all, not because they are numb, but because they are no longer embedded in the oscillation. They stand at a sufficient remove to observe pattern rather than participate in panic. This is not detachment, it is scale. Change is not approaching. Change has already arrived and is merely awaiting recognition. Those who sense this arrival but cannot tolerate its implications attempt to arrest it through constraint. They legislate certainty. They moralize ambiguity into silence. They confuse rigidity with virtue and obedience with coherence. They attempt to bind the freedoms of others, imagining, against all metaphysical precedent, that liberty is a finite substance, that it can be hoarded, damned, or rationed without consequence. This error is ancient. Freedom does not diminish by diffusion, it amplifies. And amplification terrifies those whose internal architecture cannot withstand resonance. Thus begins the cycle. First comes projection, the displacement of internal incoherence onto an external target. Then fixation, the reduction of a complex human reality into a symbol suitable for eradication. Then repetition, the compulsive reenactment of the same gesture, the same outrage, the same punitive demand, enacted again and again under the illusion of progress. This is not strategy. It is compulsion. The psyche caught in repetition is not evil. It is impoverished. It lacks the interior luminosity required for self-reflection, and so it externalizes endlessly, gnawing at the perimeter of its own awareness like an animal trapped inside a circle it refuses to notice. Each failure intensifies the behavior. Each rebuke hardens the posture. Each shock convinces the hand to reach again for the wire. Quos Deus ut pedere prius dementat. The phrase is frequently misunderstood, translated crudely as divine cruelty, as though the sacred delighted in punishment. This is an illiterate reading. In its deeper sense, the saying does not describe an act of God, but a withdrawal of coherence. When the mind refuses correction, reality ceases to protect it from itself. The madness is not imposed, it is permitted. The guardrails dissolve, the narrowing accelerates. Madness here is not frenzy, it is constriction. A shrinking of perceptual bandwidth, an obsession with control masquerading as moral clarity, an inability to tolerate plurality without experiencing it as annihilation. Those so afflicted scream, collapse, and recriminate not once, but rhythmically, ritualistically, cycling through outrage and despair with liturgical precision. They call this conviction. It is not. It is exhaustion delayed. And yet, the cosmos is pedagogical, even when individuals are not. Others observe. Others learn without immolating themselves. There is a quiet intelligence in refusing to touch the fence. There is a deeper intelligence in recognizing that one need not intervene to ensure consequence. Consequence is self-executing. To name this is not to condemn. To witness this is not to curse. To step aside is not to abandon compassion. I did not do this, one says, without malice. They did it to themselves. This is not abdication of responsibility. It is discernment of jurisdiction. Confusion arises when moral language is misapplied to domains it cannot govern. Nowhere is this more evident than in the perennial attempt to conscript private conscience into public coercion. Questions of embodiment, autonomy, and reproductive capacity are endlessly weaponized by those who confuse their internal discomfort with universal mandate. Declare your allegiance, they insist, for or against, sanctified or damned. The refusal to comply with this binary is interpreted as evasion. In truth, it is boundary integrity. To say, it is none of my damn business, is not nihilism. It is metaphysical hygiene. It recognizes the difference between ethical reflection and juridical domination. It understands that morality ceases to be moral the moment it requires the state to occupy another's bloodstream. You cannot bind another's freedom to secure your own. This is not political theory. It is energetic law. Constraint generates resistance. Resistance stores force. Force returns amplified by delay. This is why those who seek control age prematurely, why their faces harden, their language ossifies, their nervous systems degrade under the labor of constant vigilance. They are touching the fence and calling it duty. And still, the consequences escalate. Women incarcerated for spontaneous loss, bodies left untreated while physicians await legal permission for mercy, lives reduced to statistical margins, dismissed as tolerable loss in service of an abstraction that has never once bled. A small percentage, they say, as though arithmetic could transmute death into virtue, as though ideology could launder indifference into holiness. This is the moment where the moral edifice fractures, not with drama, but with exposure. The question becomes unavoidable, unanswerable by slogan or scripture. Is any ideology ennobled by the bodies it sacrifices while refusing to look? The coming era will not be kind to evasions of this sort, not because humanity has become purer, but because complexity has exceeded the capacity of coercion. The age of singular solutions is collapsing under the weight of plural realities. Uniformity is no longer efficient, it is brittle. What emerges instead is differentiation, parallel structures, explicit consent, boundaries without annihilation, spaces that exclude by choice, spaces that include by choice, spaces designed for those who have never been allowed to exist without surveillance. This is not fragmentation, it is maturation, the movement from monolith to ecosystem. Only those invested in dominance mistake plurality for chaos. And within this shifting field, something subtle occurs. A voice speaks, not prophetically, not performatively, but accurately. It names consequence without venom. It refuses to flatter or inflame. It does not seek to persuade the unwilling or rescue the obstinate. It simply articulates what is seen. The response is immediate and unembellished. I hear you loud and clear. Such moments are often mischaracterized as divine intervention. They are not. They are recognition events, instances where alignment is mirrored by reality without distortion, not approval, not command, resonance. God was not absent before. God did not arrive afterward. The current was always flowing. For a moment, attention synchronized with it, and the echo returned unimpeded. This is how truth functions when it is not forced. This is how coherence signals itself. There is only God in action, in these people, places, and conditions, not as a despot, not as a referee, but as the intelligence that ensures that what is sent returns bearing its own signature. Those who align with it need not shout. Those who oppose it need not be stopped. Time and consequence suffice. Some will continue to scream. Some will continue to burn. Some will learn by watching. Others will walk on, quiet, intact, unconsumed, carrying no mandate but fidelity to the center that does not tremble when the world rearranges itself. They spoke. They did not distort themselves, and the world answered.